In the past month, President Joe Biden said something very dangerous twice. You are probably saying to yourself that too much of what he says is dangerous. But we want to point out something that will alter our system of government forever if it's not stopped now. In a speech in the Rose Garden on April 8th, with the Vice President and members of the Cabinet and Congress in attendance, he said this while talking about the Second Amendment, quote, "But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute," unquote. He said that we have an epidemic of gun violence and that we need to curtail the ownership of guns. Never was the idea brought up that loose political policies and Marxist politicians are responsible for the rising criminal activity in our cities. Again, during his speech to the abbreviated joint session of Congress the last week of April, when talking about restricting the ownership of guns in the hands of private citizens, he reiterated, no amendment is absolute. Think about this for a minute. No amendment is absolute. He was talking about the Second Amendment, part of the Bill of Rights. He wasn't saying that the Second Amendment was not absolute, which is bad enough. He was saying this in regard to amendments in the Bill of Rights. Now, we all have problems with amendments that have been added over the years, such as the 16th and 17th Amendments, but he was referring to a provision of the Bill of Rights, not in pointing out the Second Amendment, but stating that no amendment was absolute. The freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom of assembly, the freedom to petition government for a redress of grievances, and that is only in the First Amendment. While discussing the right to keep and bear arms, he stated that no amendment was absolute. We have seen the curtailment of the freedom of religion with the banning of Easter last year. We've seen the curtailment of the freedom of speech with the idea that if you oppose government policies, somehow you are engaging in hate speech. We've seen the curtailment of the freedom of assembly by the banning of meetings of any kind. As to the freedom of petition for a redress of grievances, we've seen this happening because of the curtailment of the previous rights. We've seen the curtailment of other portions of the Bill of Rights with the raids on the homes and offices of those who were part of the Trump team of supporters and lawyers. President Biden is getting closer to the truth of how these people think. No amendment is absolute. If the Bill of Rights is not absolute, the next step is the Constitution itself. We've witnessed the politicians ignoring the Constitution for years. Now the next step is to completely scrap it, unless we do something about it. Some believe the solution is a constitutional convention or a convention of the states. Under the current conditions, this would not solve anything and will probably make it worse. If the Constitution is being ignored now, what makes anyone think that the powers that be will not ignore any new provision to the Constitution if ratified? Plus, if the states will not engage in the process of nullifying federal laws now, they will not do anything in the Convention of States to make things better. The states already have the tool to do what's right under the 10th Amendment, and they're not doing it, although a few state legislatures are waking up to the fact that they do have the power to do something if they have the will to do so. It is up to us to point out to the state legislators the words of Biden and point out where this leads, and then get them to stand up, nullify, correct the abusive election laws, and so forth. They can do it while the Constitution still exists. It is in danger. Invite your neighbors into your home to go through the Constitution as a Solution series so they will join with you in applying pressure where pressure is necessary. The words of Biden have meaning, sinister meaning. We have to get people paying attention, pointing out the ramifications of these words. The other side is using fear to control the people. We have to show them that the real fear is in the abrogation of the Constitution.